Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Hope everyone's having a good one. Today, I want to talk about the science of marinating food and some basic marinade recipes. My name is Lee, and I'm just a dude talking food. Now, first off, what's a marinade and why do we marinate food? It's more than just for increased flavor, and there's a whole science behind it. Marinades are made of fats which help transfer flavors, herbs and spices to flavor your protein, acids, which help break down the collagen, connective fibers, and the proteins of your meat to make it more tender, and salts to in time pull the marinade into your protein and create the marinating and brining effect we desire. As we see, marinating has multiple effects when done correctly, and it's a great starting culinary technique to learn and master. Marinating allows us to add increased flavor, tenderize, and moisturize, but you have to understand the science behind it, or it just doesn't work right. So, first off, marinating flavors the protein that you're working with, but it does more than just flavor the outside. It's the main reason that we marinate, it's to permeate the entire cut of meat with our flavors. When we marinate protein, this is how the science behind it works. As a rule in cooking, water follows salt. So the salt in the marinade will first pull the water out of the protein you're working with. Then, when given time and through the process of osmosis, that water gets pulled back into your protein and it takes with it all of that concentrated marinade flavor. That's why giving your marinade time to work is key. Most mistakes happen because the protein isn't marinated long enough, taken out too early, and the protein is then dry and bland. This is why true marinating should be done far ahead of time. I tend to marinate starting in the morning for cooking in the afternoon or the evening. If you marinate for just an hour or two, like a lot of TV chefs will say, you're likely to start cooking your protein when the water has been pulled out and hasn't yet been drawn back in. This will leave you with a tough, dry, flavorless meat. So, most proteins should really be marinated for at least 4 hours or longer, and up to a day or two, depending on the cut and the type of protein you're working with. So, as we discussed with the flow of water to salt, marinating has a second effect when done correctly, and that's to moisturize your protein. This is called the brining effect. It's using the osmotic effect to draw that moisture deep into your protein. You'll often hear people talk about brining turkeys or briskets. These are two notoriously tough and dry proteins. So, as the salt and marinade is pulled back into the meat, it's adding all that moisture back into the protein. And that salt is making the protein hold on to that moisture. This allows for a marinated protein to be juicier and more flavorful and allowing them to hold more moisture during the cooking process. The third effect marinating has is to tenderize. The salts and acids being drawn back into your protein help break down those protein strands, the collagen, the connective tissue, and in general makes your meat more tender. This makes marinating great for cuts of meat that are normally tough or flavorless. So, with all this taken into account, we can look at one last thing to consider with marinades, and that's how the size of your protein pieces affect absorption. The smaller the piece of protein, the more it will be exposed to the marinade and absorb the flavors. This is why cutting a chicken into multiple pieces and marinating will be way more effective than marinating one whole. The same goes for other cuts of meat, whether it be beef, lamb, or whatever. So now that we understand why we marinate and how marinades work, we can look at some marinades inspired from various cuisines around the world. This first is a house favorite. It's inspired by the bold Thai flavors of peanuts, chilies, garlic, ginger, and lime, and we often use sriracha to substitute for the fresh chilies. You see, we have our fats, flavors, acids, and salts, everything we need for a good marinade. These next two marinades are Mediterranean inspired. The first one stays close to Italy, so we're using olive oil, red wine vinegar, garlic, parsley, basil, and oregano to layer up some nice flavors that work well on most proteins. Our next Mediterranean marinade is more Greek inspired. We replace the red wine vinegar with some lemon juice, replace the basil with some dill, but otherwise these two marinades are very similar. The lemon juice in this one provides a much brighter and lighter flavor. Our next pair of marinades depend heavily on fresh herbs. One we use a lot is a lemon garlic rosemary marinade. The fresh rosemary and garlic, when combined with lemon, provide some very powerful flavors. Our next herb marinade uses a variety of fresh herbs. Dried herbs can be used, but any fresh herbs you can use will make this better. Just remember, you use 1/3 of the amount of dried herbs if you don't have fresh. So 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs becomes 1 teaspoon dried. This is a general rule of thumb when cooking with herbs. Another marinade we use a lot is Tex-Mex inspired. We use this on chicken and beef, and the chili powder, cumin, and lime juice really make this one stand out. Another of our favorites is a Japanese teriyaki inspired marinade. We make this one all the time. This one is sweet and savory with accents of ginger and garlic and rice wine vinegar. This last marinade is inspired by Indian cuisine. We use yogurt as the marinade base. It's both a fat and an acid, so it actually works really well. We then add in some Indian spices, garlic, ginger, and cilantro. This makes a really, really flavorful marinade. Thank you all for joining me today. It really means a lot. I hope you all learned something from this video and can apply these marinades to your own cooking. Please feel free to leave any comments and questions if you have any. You also please like and subscribe if you can. All of this helps our channel dearly. Have a great one, everybody.